This is the Intuitknit podcast back again. This is episode number 11. I'm Lori, your host, and I'm coming to you from a place in Ontario, Canada, just north of Toronto. Today is August the 24th, Wednesday, and I thought I'd sneak in a podcast today because I'm back in town. I've been away a little bit for a retreat, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that later. And just thought I would share some of the things that we did on the retreat and things I've been working on lately. This is a podcast about knitting, spinning, and some of the other craft endeavors I, tried out. And so I thought I would share those with you today. So thanks to anyone new coming, and for those of you returning for the second, third, fourth, fifth, I think I've made 10 podcasts. I thank you very much. I'm really happy that you're with me. So today, I thought I would start out with things that I've been that I finished, because I do have a few whips that I'm still working on, and then I'll get into a little bit about my holidays. So thought you might be interested in that. For those of you who follow me on Instagram, I'm Intuitknit on Instagram, and so you can probably see some of the things that I'm working on there. And in our Ravelry group, we have an Intuitknit podcast group. I have to say I'm not there very often lately, especially in the summer, but for those of you who are engaging in conversation, thanks a lot, and join us if you can. Okay, so today I've got a pair of socks, and these I showed you when they were in progress, but now they're finished, thankfully, and off my needles. So these are the socks that I've completed, and these were a lacy cable pattern that I found in a book called Knitting 24/7. This wasn't the entire pattern that I had in the book, that they had in the book, but what I've done is use that lace pattern for the cuff, and just made a plain sock heel. I made a garter stitch heel, and I think I maybe showed you one in the last podcast. So those are off the needles and blocked out, and they actually softened up quite a bit. This was a Sisu yarn it was a Norwegian yarn that I tried out. And it was a little bit rustic at the time, but now it's blocked out. It's a lot softer, so I'm happy about that. The other thing I've been doing is looking at sewing project bags, as well as just handbags and grocery bags. So the last time that I was on the podcast, I think I showed you a huge grocery bag that I'd finished. And so that's come in handy lots of ways. But now I completed another handbag. And this is just a smaller handbag of my own making. This was some upholstery fabric that I used, and it's just a bag that you could put your wallet in, keys, that sort of thing when you're out shopping. And this is the plain lining that I've used. This is just a stretchy elastic cord that I inserted, and some pockets. I don't know if you can see them there, pockets on the inside. So that was fun. I think next time if I do this bag again, and the construction was fairly easy. It's just side panels, a bottom panel, and then of course the main front here, and the handles. But I think next time when I complete this, I think it might make it quite a bit bigger. I find that with the number of things that I carry around, it's just better if it's a little bit bigger. So these are summer colors. I might even try putting in a zipper next time to make the closure a little bit more secure, because what happens then sometimes if you're out shopping is people could feasibly put their hand in, at the cash register or something. So I was always kind of thinking about that as I was in crowds and things. So anyway, that's that complete. And for whips, I'm working on, let's see, I'll show this first. This is my beaded shawl that I'm working on, and I've shown you the yarn many times before. It's the Shackenmeyer Tahiti yarn. It's a cotton yarn, and so I've made a little bit more progress on it, and you can see that there's some color changes happening in that very kind of tropical, Tahiti-like color. And I'm inserting some beads before and after the bead. I put a yarn over in, so it just makes it a little more airy. And so I'm kind of halfway through. I've just started another skein of that. And I could have ended with one skein if I'd wanted a shawlette, but I think I'll just venture on and see if I can make it just a little bit bigger. I'm just going in a pattern that I've devised on my own, just using the beads and the yarn overs to create a little bit of minor lace pattern. But yeah, I've just been enjoying it. It's kind of been a mindless knit, and to tell you the truth, I haven't really designed any method really in a written form anyway to put in the beads. As I go, I've just been looking at where it seems to say it wants to have a bead, and funny enough, it's kind of worked out symmetrically, and I don't think you'd even notice that I actually didn't have complete, symmetry on the way that I've added the beads. So yeah, that's kind of an intuitive process I've used, but actually it's okay. It worked out. It's very soft, so if you're ever thinking of using this yarn, it's a nice summer knit because it doesn't really stick to your fingers as you're knitting, and you could probably wear it quite comfortably on a cool summer night because it is cotton. So yeah, I'm quite happy with that. That comes in a number of colors, that yarn, so there's a few very summery colors in that spectrum of shades they make. So the other thing is, I was on a trip, as you know, maybe you don't know, but I was down in the southern, well, not really the southern states. I was in Virginia, West Virginia, Maryland over the past week, and so I needed to take a project just for the plane with me. So sometimes when baggage gets separated from one when you're traveling, it's a good idea to take projects that you could feasibly lose. I don't know how you feel, but that's kind of how I was feeling about it when I left. And of course, with the whole idea of taking needles on the plane, I thought, well, I'll take these little wooden needles, these knit pick needles, on the plane. So yeah, I've got these little wooden needles from Knit Picks. These are 2.25, I believe. And I just was making a sock out of scrap yarn that I had. It's pooling in the front, or what has become the front anyway. It's pooling a little bit, but if you remember, I made a red pair of socks out of this yarn earlier, and what it is it's kind of a fuchsia pink, and it's plied with an orange, so there is a bit of an orange tint to it. And this yarn here is got quite a bit of orange in it, so it does have a relationship, but probably not one color combination that everybody would love, but hey, it's colorful. So when I have those winter nights when I want to put on a warm sock, that'll be it. So I'm just doing a heel flap and gusset, and yeah, I'll knit those up. Hopefully I'll have enough yarn. I think I might start the second one very soon and get it down to the end of the gusset decreases, just so that I can estimate how much yarn that I'll have, because I've got this much left. So hopefully I can get sock number 2 out of it. Yeah, so that's that. And basically it's a 2-ply 70, 75, 25 blend of nylon and wool. So that's that. So the next whip that I have is basically a yarn that I dyed during this yarn dyeing retreat that I went to, and in Knoxville, Maryland. And so it is it's their sock base, and I'll just tell you a little bit more about it here. Studio sock base, and it's a 2-ply fingering weight superwash merino yarn. It's totally wool. There's no nylon to it. So I thought, well, what I would do is just devise a shawl pattern of my own making, and just knit it up while I was there. There were lots of nights where knitting was kind of the connecting activity for many of us who were on the retreat. So we just sat around and I worked on this. I actually pulled it out a couple of times because I didn't have a pattern, and I was trying to do the tab start to the shawl, because it's a crescent-shaped shawl. And yeah, so it starts out this very deep purple color, and then in the gradient that I made, and this was a sock blank, so that's why the kinkiness to the yarn. So what it is it's a violet color. It goes then to a lighter sort of grayish blue color, and then it becomes this green color. So this was an exploration in color that I did, and I was quite pleased with it, as it turns out. I had to make the decision whether I was going to start it with the purple at my shoulders for the shawl, and then finish up with the green, or vice versa. And I just decided, yeah, the purple might look better, with my coloring. So that's kind of the way I rolled with it. And yeah, so that's just being knit up on my new Knit Pro marbles needles. These are size number or they're not size number 4, but they're 4mm needles. And I'd first seen these on Emily's podcast, the Fibertown podcast, and thought I might like to try them. They're a little bit neon, so I thought, well, maybe knitting, in the dark might show off a little bit more easily than any wooden needles might. So, and I got through customs with this no problem too, to get on the plane. So that was nice. Okay, so what I will do next is maybe tell you a little bit about the fiber retreat that I was on. So when I went onto the Knitters Review website, and that's a great website for anyone who hasn't seen it, what it is it's a total list of international fiber events that are going on all over the world. And when I looked up the time frame that I was hoping to, do some sort of holiday, I found this one, and it was in the States. So I mentioned it to a friend of mine who likes to knit on our knit nights on Mondays, and so she and I decided that we would try to take it in. So we went down. We weren't planning on driving, but that would have been like a 10-hour drive from where I'm living in Ontario. And so we decided, well, we just hop on a plane instead and fly into the Dulles Airport in Washington. Dulles Airport, I don't think it's Washington, but it's in the vicinity of Washington. Yeah, so that was a great decision that we made, because it was the hottest of hot days, and everyone in this time frame has been having the heat, and those days were no different. So we flew down. The flight probably took us maybe an hour to get down there, so it was perfect. And then we had the whole day that we could use exploring, so that was great. So the fiber retreat that we went on was hosted by the neighborhood fiber company, and if you'd like to see more about that company, this is the website, neighborhoodfibercompany.com. So I'd really encourage you to take a look at that website. They, of course, make a lot of dyed yarns, and they also host another yarn dyeing retreat in Baltimore, I believe. So it was great. It was at a beautiful retreat center. It was a home that had many rooms that we shared in some cases, and common areas, and we had beautiful meals for lunch and dinner there, and it was kind of grab your own breakfast, which was perfect for us because we were wanting to sleep in and come to the breakfast at different times. And so then there were 17 people who were doing it, and the organization behind something like that is just overwhelming. I was just blown away with the organization that the hosts had in bringing it all together. This was the second year they had done it, and I swear it seemed like they had done it for years because they were just so on the target for getting it all together. So imagining all of the equipment that you'd have to bring in for something like that. They had these pots, these silver stainless steel pots, and these burners that were butane fueled, and they had them there for all of the participants to do, sometimes even 2 pots going at once, depending on the technique that you were learning. So we had that, and that was in a small little sort of separate building away from the retreat. But there's also a tent that was set up for the outdoor yarn dyeing that we did, which was more like speckle dyeing that we were doing out there, which was good to be outside because, of course, speckle dyeing does necessitate that you're using the dye pigments, which can become, it can be sort of distributed in the air, and you don't want to breathe it in. We were wearing masks and all the appropriate safety gear that you'd need for something like that, but it was just so well organized and orchestrated. And then, of course, they had the staff who would, once you did your completed yarn, they would put it into a bath for you, and then it was all hung out on these different racks outside. And luckily, of course, the weather was great for drying yarn, and it became dry in no time at all, and then we could really enjoy seeing what we created. So yeah, it was perfect. I had made like a little book before I left of different ideas based on photographs that I'd had, and had yarns that were in a yarn sample book that I'd kind of pasted on, just sort of get myself in the mode. Presented with so many colors the way we were, I knew that it would be overwhelming to sort of try to decide, what combinations you're going to use, because there's just so many, isn't there? When you start mixing primary colors and then graying them down with their complement, as well as using black to darken it if that would be the case, there's just so many combinations that you could use. So it was interesting to see all the things that came out of that. So I'll just share with you what I made during that time and see what you think about it. I can't say I was successful with all of my goals, but that's what we do when we learn, right? It's just a matter of experimentation. And as with painting, it is a bit of courage that you have to use to just wing it and try your best to sort of get something that you're going to like afterwards. So I'll show you a few of them, and I'll let you know which ones I am favoring. This one was another sock yarn that I had created. This was the first skein that I made, and I don't know about you, but sometimes when you're just starting something, jumping in with both feet is the way to go, and that probably was what was happening here. I was just starting to use many different colors. This was like a pot dye that we had done, and actually this wasn't the original skein that I had made in that venture the first day. This was an over dye that I did on the second or third day, to try to get up to something I really liked. But nevertheless, I mean, you got some nice warm colors here, the golds, the greens, and the blue. I put in more blue as an afterthought when I was trying to create something more enjoyable for my aesthetic. And so it looks a bit darker than it did in its original skein, but yeah. So that's 100% wool. Then this is the other one. This is like a rusty color. I was experimenting with just how intense the colors could be in the warm color range, because of course when you use yellows, they're not going to really have the same intensity of color, not intensity, but value of color, as you would with some of the other color choices. So this looks a bit more orange as I'm showing it to you here, but it's actually more rust color in reality. So yeah, so that was another one. These were kind of dip dyed, and so I just kept adding the colors that would complement the original pink color. And so what you'll see here is that I've used a cooler tone on one end of the skein, and then tried to warm up other parts by adding a bit of yellow here. So those kind of go together because I was dipping them at the same time, which is great because now they'll have that relationship. But these were 2 skeins of single ply that I had purchased at the Knitter's Frolic in Toronto. And so this was 80% merino, 20% silk, and this was a single ply. And I believe when you're using a single ply, maybe it takes up the yarn a bit differently because it doesn't have to fight between those plies as you would with a two or three or four ply wool. So maybe that's why this one looks more consistently dyed in some of the areas here. Yeah, I enjoyed that one. That was one that I liked. And this one was an experiment with speckle dyeing. So what they did with the speckle dye was that they gave us pigments which were already distributed in a mixture of salt, coarse salt, fine salt. They were put into shakers, and so we had a pot, a stainless steel pot with the citric acid in it as a mordant. And then we had different shakers of color that we could apply to a very minimal amount of yarn, or at least minimal amount of water that was soaking in the yarn. So the color didn't have a chance to really dilute or merge into other colors. And that, I think, is the secret of speckle dyeing, is to try to limit the amount of water so that you get these very isolated dots of color. So yeah, that kind of worked out, and yeah, I'm quite happy with that. I can see that knit up into a lovely shawl, and so that was one of my favorite ones. I kind of was on a warm color scheme when I was away, it seems. And this one was 100% silk. Silk is a little bit more delicate to dye because what you want to do is retain some of the luster that is intrinsic for silk because of the coating that the silkworm actually has on the fiber when it's being created. So I went really light on this one because I didn't really want to interfere too much with the intensity of color to make that luster disappear. Not everyone, of course, went light when their experiments happened with the silk, and some had some beautiful, vibrant colors. I remember the first one that was done was like an emerald green, and hers worked out very beautifully too. So, and then this one was actually speckled. Was it speckled? No, I think this one was a sock blank that I had dyed through a dabbing process that we use with these little sponge brushes. And it was basically a gold color with brush marks that were more of its complement. So yeah, blues and purples and that sort of thing. And then when I dried it and skeined it up, it didn't really appeal to me all that much. So on my last day there, I thought, you know what, I'm just going to make it into something that I like better. So I laid on the ruby red dye over top. And actually I was more pleased with the result that came out of that. So yeah, I quite enjoyed this. This one was their cobblestone sock base. And that's made of a 3-ply blend of BFL, cashmere, and silk. And it has a long staple length. And so what's not to like about that? So it's 75% BFL, 15% cashmere, 10% silk, and that's 400 yards. So that one was quite a nice one as it turned out. I really enjoyed that one. So, and then I had some lace weight that I brought, and actually I'm not pleased with this one, but you know, now I've learned how to dye it and have more confidence doing the dyeing. Maybe I'll do this in my own home. This was a soft touch lace wool, 100% wool that I had acquired, quite a few years ago by the Sheldridge Farm people. It's 100% wool and 500 yards in each skein, and so these were a peach color. Imagine these with some beads inserted, and it might be a very nice summery shawl for some people who enjoy that color, but I'm thinking maybe I should have toned it down a little because it's very, very peachy, isn't it? anyway, depending on my mood, you know, that's might not be out of the question. There's some time up ahead too. So, and then I did dye some fiber. This is 100% merino roving that they had, and let's see here. Yeah, it's just studio roving, 100% superwash merino spinning fiber. So this one goes through a little bit of a color change between this sort of rich sort of mauve blues, and this was just put into the pot with some mordant, which was the citric acid in our case, and then just simmered it away until all the dye was exhausted and the water was clear, and then just took it out after that. But in the pot it was a glorious color because of course the sun was shining down and it just looked so intense in its color. So this will, I think, spin up to be quite a lovely blend of blues, greens, mauves, and a very familiar color to me. That was the thing, to try to get away from choosing something that you normally would choose. Color is like that, isn't it? It just, you gravitate toward the same things oftentimes, and hard to kind of get out of that mindset of what you like and maybe explore other options as well. So yeah, so that was a lot of fun. So my friend and I, we explored lots of the historic areas around Harper's Ferry, because this retreat was located just north over the Potomac River, and it was in a very, very historic area for anyone who's interested in Civil War history and that sort of thing. John Brown and his history. So we went exploring lots of times. We also went to lots of antique shops and had some great meals. I couldn't get over the quality of the meals. Everywhere we went, it was just so delicious. And the meals too at the retreat were just fabulous. So if you ever get a chance and you'd really like to go for 3 or 4 days to this yarn dyeing retreat, go onto the Neighborhood Fiber website and see if you might enjoy it. It's a great time away. We could have gone to something more local to us because there are opportunities here, but it's sort of fun to get away and get out of your country to sort of see how other people are living. And it was great because Emily of the Fibertown podcast invited me to come over for, we had lunch there, and she was so generous to offer that, and I met her family, and it was just great. Saw her beautiful studio where she has all of these fleeces that she's processing, and of course she just exudes the joy of those, you know, fibers, because she likes the process so much. So it's lovely to be around her. I do find it's really great to meet somebody that enjoys the same things I do. And she let me try her wheel because I'm not that familiar with the woolen method of spinning. So she let me try that, and it seems to be such an enjoyable and even more peaceful way of spinning, and probably faster, certainly faster than what I've been doing, that I'm going to start practicing on my own. So thanks, Emily. That was just great to see you and see your family and so on. I was telling her how much I enjoyed her son's participation in her podcast, and I had brought actually a book for him and spent my whole afternoon there, and then my Alzheimer brain didn't let me remember that I'd had it packed in my suitcase. So I had bought him this book about you know, paper folding. And so I thought maybe he'd really enjoy this, but as it turned out, I left before I could even give it to him. So Oliver, if you're watching this, it's going to come to you in the mail. So hang in there, buddy. Maybe you'll enjoy it. So she was showing me some of the things that she'd done as a result. We've been having this mutual interest of doing some eco-dyeing. And I guess that's new to you folk, because I haven't shown any of the things that I've produced with the eco-dyeing that I've been doing necessarily. And I had started out by doing some eco-dyeing on other fibers, but then I discovered that in most of the reading that I've been doing, and if you don't know eco-dyeing, it's using plants to really stain the fabric by a process of putting it in a steamed container after it's been rolled up with these other plant fibers that you can use for that sort of thing, with a mordant, and you come out with some beautiful images of the original plant, and of course the pigment will leach out into the fabric as well. But what I was reading about was that you need to actually use silk for the best results. And so I looked through my stash of fabric, and it so happened that in a thrift store years ago I'd acquired almost 3 or 4 yards of this raw silk, and which I'd never used. It was a very neutral color. So I took it outside and had my way with it. So here's the fabric that turned out from that process, and you can kind of see that there's a mixture of golds and like a rust color and purples and greens and golds. So for those of you who like that kind of watercolorish imaging and color sense, this would be a really great project to try, and it's really up to you as to what fibers you use to try it. Apparently linen is a little more difficult, cotton might be difficult, but silk fibers would probably be the most pleasurable one because you get a better result. But the amount of plants that you can use is endless. You know, you could go and explore your own regions, and I know Emily had tried some of the plants local to her, and she'd found some of the results similar to mine in terms of things like clematis being good, marigolds, and some of the oranges that she'd had. I forget now what she was using. Maybe it was marigold, but for this orange that I had been successful with, these were Japanese lanterns that were growing in my garden to create those orange images there. I don't know if you can see it properly. But anyway, yeah, the whole process has been very enjoyable. And so when I was thrifting when I was away, I bought this linen top. And so that was very good. But what I discovered is I have to wear a little camisole with it. And what I was thinking was maybe I could make some insertion, because this color does relate. Maybe I could make an insertion into this area and use that for part of this top. So yeah, it's a lot of play and a lot of pleasure. So if you get a chance, do explore it, because it's lots of fun. Now, I had bought this book. I think I may have told you that I was going to buy this book. It's called Eco Color by India Flint. And as you can see by the cover, it's just gorgeous what kinds of results that this dyer can come up with. And so I thought I would show you a few examples out of this book of some of the things that she's created out of just simple colors that she can acquire through the plant materials that she's found. That's a very deep, rich pink color. And that was a bag that she had made. And of course, there's just an endless amount of information and factual advice about how to do some of this hand dyeing. So you can see the array of different plant materials that she's collected to add to her dye bath and to the fabric. And sometimes things turn out that you wouldn't expect them to be, you know, as the result of some of the plants that you collect. And look at this, beautiful. Isn't that amazing? Look at the intricacy of some of those images. It's just fabulous what she can do. So yeah, it's a whole other world, and on Instagram I'm chasing after many people who are, you know, just a wealth of information, and have created such beautiful images for some of the dyeing that they've done. And avocado is another one that can produce, I think, a pink color like what you're seeing there. Yeah, so I'm really happy. This is a book that I'll pore over for quite a while now, because it's just fabulous in the number of things that you can do. Okay, I think one thing I forgot to tell you and show you, and we're at half an hour, so I'm going to end this soon, but I was doing this shawl, and I just noticed it now that I forgot to show you. It's the June bunny shawl, and I've made a variation on it. And then I'm doing the repeats more thickly than in the original pattern. So while she has just one line of this lace pattern to start with and then increases it as it goes, I'm making it more thick and probably have a repeat of 2 or 3 times more as I go. And this is Knit Picks. Knit Picks, oh gosh, I can't remember now. You'll probably be able to see the colors and know what that is, but it's just left my mind at the moment. But I'll put it in the show notes if I ever make them. Yeah, so I just can't remember. But I'm knitting it up on, I think it's a 3.5 needle. Yeah, and so we'll see how that goes. It's always nice to have a couple of shawls I find on the needles because they're mindless in so many ways. Anyways, it's been about a half an hour, and I do thank you for joining me. It's a beautiful sunny day here, and now that our drought seems to have ended, I have to get out and see if I can resurrect some of the plants that have met their maker. And also my lawn, you know, it's in patches now, so I've got to figure out, okay, how am I going to reseed these areas and make it look presentable again? So I hope that wherever you are, you're having a great day, and that your craftiness is continuing through the summer, and that you have lots of pleasure in whatever you're doing, whatever you're making. And I will hope to record in the next month. I can't tell you when, but it'll be soon. Okay, bye for now.